Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Free Assange Vigil, week 45. I'm your host, Kendra Christian. I'm joined tonight by co-hosts Steve Poinkaden, Andrew Smith, and Misty Winston. Today marks day 3,444 since the illegal and arbitrary detention of Julian Assange. It's 397 days since he was trafficked out of the Ecuadorian embassy after being sold for a 4.2 billion IMF loan to Ecuador. 118 days until a second phase of the extradition hearing starts. 1,074 days of incarceration for a reality winner, and our celebration, 60 Days of Freedom for Chelsea Manning. Tonight we're joined by two great guests, Nozomi Hayase and Jason Burmis. But before we get started, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Steve.
I was muted. So we launched our GoFundMe last week because we were planning a series of higher profile and better attended actions and events throughout the 3 weeks of the extradition hearing process. If we could get that up on screen. Awesome, thank you. So yeah, it's really, if you can, please do donate. So many of you helped us out last time. We were able to do some incredible things when we were in DC. If you are not in a position to donate to the GoFundMe, we totally understand, like now more than ever, trust us. So please share the link, because the more that link gets out there, the better our odds of getting this funded are. We've been having some tech glitches, but while it looks like Nozomi's here, I would like to bring her in, introduce her. She's a liberation psychologist and an author and a longtime supporter of WikiLeaks, and we're very, very pleased to have her on the show with us tonight. So without further delay, Nozomi, how are you doing this evening? Are you there?
Good, thank you. I've been frozen. There's a technical difficulty here, so.
Hopefully we get some respite from that.
Yeah.
So we've wanted to have you on for a while now, and we had a perfect opportunity last week when you froze again. There you are. When you wrote this incredible piece for Anti-War. And if you would like to just kind of walk us through it a little bit and set it up, then we'll dive into it, because it's really just really well written.
Yeah. First of all, thank you me, and thank you for your hard work. Being frozen again. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Hey. Hi, guys.
Well, we lost Nozomi, but Misty did end up joining us. How are you tonight, Misty?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thank you very much for hopping on with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So while we get her, while Nozomi's tech situation gets figured out, because it seems like there's some connection issues going on there, do we want to pull up the article that she had written and kind of dive into it a little bit? There we go.
I don't know why this is not working, but
Okay, I will do that.
Sorry for the technical difficulties, everyone. We're figuring it out.
We're doing it live. Yeah, no, we can hop into the article. So Nozomi wrote an article, and it's titled "Assange's U.S. Extradition: Threat to the Future of Internet and Democracy." It goes over the privatized censorship that we have, the big tech's fight against disinformation in regards to multiple different things, silencing the voices of dissidents, the CIA's cyber warfare program, what she calls Rage Against the Machine, and the existential threat to democracy. But basically, what her article summarizes and shows, and we'll go through it in so many different proportions, is the scale of the threat that's essentially faced by multiple different institutions, the powers that these organizations have, and how they can use them against people. Did we get her back with us, or is that Misty again?
Is the scary feedback done? I think it's Misty again. Nozomi's restarting. So yeah, let's go back straight into the article. I was trying to communicate with her, so I'm not entirely sure.
Yay!
All right, can you hear me now? Here I am now. Yeah, can you?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of very.
Oh,
I don't know if she got the message about the video settings. I'm gonna try that again. Oh, she did send me a statement that Julian Assange made that she said, please read if we're still having trouble. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick because it is something that she wanted to get into. So while we're figuring that out, maybe I'll, go ahead and do this. The future of humanity is the struggle between humans that control machines and machines that control humans. While the internet has brought about a revolution in our ability to educate each other, the consequent democratic explosion has shaken existing establishments to their core. Burgeoning digital superstates such as Google, Facebook, and their Chinese equivalents, who are integrated with the existing order, have moved to reestablish discourse control. This is not simply a corrective action. Undetectable mass social influence powered by artificial intelligence is an existential threat to humanity. While still in its infancy, the geometric nature of this trend is clear. The phenomenon differs from traditional attempts to shape culture and politics by operating at a scale, speed, and increasingly at a subtlety that appears highly likely to eclipse human countermeasures. Nuclear war, climate change, or global pandemics are existential threats that we can work through with discussion and thought. Discourse is humanity's immune system for existential threats. Diseases that infect the immune system are usually fatal, in this case, at a planetary scale. That was in 2018, by the way. So no small amount of prescience on the part of Julian Assange when they came out with that statement.
And the battle against the free press and the war to stop the public disclosure of information has only escalated dramatically since then as well.
Well, yeah, and also Nozomi had closed her article with that, and then she had her own paragraph, which I'd like to read as well. Prosecution of WikiLeaks is an attack on the free press that is supposed to promote the discourse necessary to maintain the health of our society. A potential U.S. extradition of Assange poses existential threats to democracy. We must fight to stop it, for without each individual's ability to speak freely, the tyranny of the authoritarian technocracy will become inevitable. It will be the extinction of free human beings everywhere in the world. When I was reading through this article, that was something I just thought that was such an excellent closing and so true. And so, it just brings it all really home, because that really is what's going on. And Julian Assange would say a lot, we are the last free people. And that's kind of what we're really seeing that happen now. It's like 11:59. I think we have Nozomi back. Nope.
I'm trying to get it to see if reducing the quality from HD to standard definition on her end will make the thing run any better for her. I do want to pull that statement back up because there's a couple of things that I think are well worth touching on. And first and foremost is discourse control. Like, this is something that we see over and over, not just in the work that we do, but in American politics and global politics, and even in the way that people talk about sports. There's got to be some sort of control over the discourse, some sort of management of the narrative, and people don't get to have the kinds of free-flowing conversations that I think they would normally want to. And I would like to know what your guys' thoughts are about that.
Steve, it's funny that you, just the other day, I was thinking about that because I'm like, I mean, I remember even in my, early 20s and somewhat throughout my 20s that, it was normal to disagree with each other. Not, I mean, even if certainly there was still narrative management, but I just feel like it's kind of, every year it just seems to get worse and worse and worse, as people believe a lot more of these premises. And now it's, I mean, I have people who I've always disagreed with on politics, but who it's only been, recently that it's, you're not able to come together as friends afterwards even. And I find that really terrible. So definitely I've experienced it.
Well, the narrative managers would say that you either think along the same ideological lines as someone, or you're literally Hitler. Or that if you have somebody on your program who may have had a difference of opinion with you, that means you as the show's host automatically co-sign everything that person has ever said, done, or will say, and it makes you no different from them whatsoever. It's what platforming is one of the more, I don't know, nefarious side effects of discourse control.
Yeah, definitely. One thing too that that was so nice about the group we had in DC, because I definitely probably have more conservative views than most people. And it was some of the conversation that we had was just so great because everybody was coming from a place of, wanting to know the truth, wanting to, hear, like, listen to what each other said. And it was just like, it was a breath of fresh air from what I'm used to dealing with. And I think that's a really neat thing amongst a lot of WikiLeaks supporters.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to get a hold of Nozomi and do all this. If either of you would like to try talking during this, that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing that you guys were talking about, I have echo. Okay, is that better?
Yeah, there we go.
I did have that too, because it was taking forever to load. But yeah, I live in small town Ohio. So, I mean, I'm surrounded by people I disagree with. And like, it's not like a thing. Like when I'm dropping my kids off for play dates or, talking to somebody at cheerleading practice, I don't care like what political beliefs they have or whatever. I disagree with people. Like, you can disagree with people and still, want to do right by each other. And do you know what I mean? Like, it just seems like such a simple-minded thing that we can actually disagree and still try to work together. I don't know. It just seems like such a weird thing to have to talk about,
Well,
And
why you can't have a disagreement anymore without somebody getting like so ignominiously butthurt that you can't have a conversation with them ever again? Is this going to lead us into an awkward conversation about cancel culture? I mean, because I'll pick up that baseball bat and I'll go beat something with it. I will.
I mean, I put out a new set of actions for this week that I'll drop into the chat. And What this is supposed to do, we're kind of supposed to focus on, at least the first part of it, is reaching out to different labor organizations. And it's the IWW, and then 3 other major labor organizations within the United States, and then 3 different international labor organizations to try to get them involved and up to date on Julian's situation. But a lot of them also have contact to the local directories in there, which allows you to get in contact with smaller groups if you're that ambitious to reach out to a local chapter to see if you can try to organize something with them and with their union. But then there's also the petitions and a couple other things in there. So I'll drop that in the chat if anyone is interested in taking action. There's a couple different ones, and you can always go back through the previous weeks as well.
Okay. Let me see.
I was going to be like, damn it, we got it already.
Yeah, it's now. Yeah, I said it. The lowest quality.
That is much better, though.
Yeah, maybe that's the program.
Thanks everybody for bearing with us while we get this settled, or as settled as we can.
To circle back to discourse control, and to kind of foreshadow one of the things that we're going to be talking about when we get to the new section of the portion now, the smears that Julian Assange faces throughout global establishment or legacy media. It is discourse control at its finest, because very rarely will you hear, especially in American cable television, very rarely will you hear anyone on TV say anything remotely close to the charges that Julian Assange is facing, the amount of time he may spend in prison, or the precedent that it will establish for journalists and publishers worldwide. What you can talk about are bullshit, lies, and smears, and maybe somebody can counteract 1 or 2 of those, like Pamela Anderson. When she went on The View, she was able to sort of push back on a couple of the smears, but at no point did even Pam get to talk about what was going to happen to journalism or to Julian Assange if he's extradited.
Well, and I think if you want to really study how crazy the decade-long attacks on WikiLeaks and Julian Assange has been from a propaganda standpoint, they have spent a crap ton of time, money, and resources just trying to slowly chip away at his character and his reputation, his intentions, whatever. And it's been like this slow walk where you're just convincing everybody that he's this awful, horrible person, and none of it's true. And I was talking to my husband the other day, and there's a reason why it's so convoluted. There's a reason why there are multiple countries involved. There's a reason why there's rumors and innuendo, and there's this story that gets kind of retracted, but it's this really intense, decade-long psyops on the people. It's crazy to watch and still be effective. It's nuts how much they get away with on doing this. And if they can do it to him, they're going to do it to all of us. I mean, they're coming for all of us in this way. I mean, you're going to be labeled a terrorist and tossed into a cell somewhere, and that'll be it for you.
And it's something that we're seeing already too, with the way that they're treating protesters just around the world. Like, we live in a Five Eyes country, and you see that the Australian government is putting people in jail preemptively for simply planning protests. And that's something that we'll probably see very soon here in the United States.
Look, man, I understand that that's more than likely coming. I kind of hope that they wait until they introduce pandemic round 2 for that, and that we get our summer and fall to go and freely assemble, because I was just talking to Vanessa Beeley earlier today, and one of the things that we were discussing was when something of this magnitude happens and the entire press is sleeping on it because they're intimidated, or they think they've got institutional security, or the bubble that they're in just reinforces all of the smears and the lies, and they miss the boat on it. There's not going to be any of us left to give them sympathy when they get dragged away too. We need to be hammering this now, and that's why we're organizing well in advance of going to DC, so that can be part of what we do. You want to give it a shot, Nozomi? Can you hear me? I can see you blinking. That's a good sign.
So I missed what you guys were earlier, but I wanted to say, emphasize on the importance of force, and I asked to read the statement made by June 2018, where I frozen again.
It's pretty laggy, yeah.
So in 2018, he, as if he was predicting what about to come and we're facing right, which is this crisis, and so asked to engage in free speech debate. What that means to us has been prohibited, and this largely done by giant companies using in censorship now. Am I hearing me? Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty broken up, but we can hear you kind of okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. No. Yeah. So so what he predicted or emphasized, that Julian emphasized the importance of the discourse, and discourse is immunity. That if we can't have debate, if we cannot have a dialogue about what's happening, we don't have democracy. And this is what we are seeing now. The government basically asking giant tech companies to engage in against the disinformation, anything to do with COVID-19. And what I observed is is speaking out against this dominant narrative, official narrative about this pandemic have been blocked. The YouTube removed their interview videos, and then almost not many people are talking about it, or even speech. Okay, EFF kind of approving, saying, making a statement saying, this is an emergency, this is a crisis, so it's okay for now. Temporarily, it's okay. But permanently, it's to censor free speech. For the being, it's they approve, and it's enormous, all of us, because now that this official narrative pushed forward, and that there is this Bill Gates trying to try to have the mandated vaccine for everyone, or all those private interests working through, and people are not informed about what's going on, and they are made to actually simply believe in officials. So I think that. Yeah, so I think that this is why that releasing allowing us to debate, basically, and more than ever, I feel absence of this organization, really the vital the function of Judaism, and what would have what would it be that if June is allowed to continue to publish, and is you know the WikiLeaks providing us, and how we could in this almost live, and we don't even ability to read it. So I thought it was very important that everybody should become aware of, and this time and as well. This is the reason why those in power put him into prison, because of his fierce defense for speech and informing about critical information that is needed for democratic debate.
Well, and you're right, and it is really bothersome when organizations like F in particular come out and kind of provide cover for the internet censorship that we're facing for this. I have this conversation with people to this day about 9/11 who will sit there and tell you that George Bush was the most lyingest liar that ever lied on camera, but the official story about 9/11 is to be 100% believed. And we're seeing a recycling of that position with the COVID response. Donald Trump, serial liar, wouldn't know the truth if it ran up to him and stole whatever that is that lives on his head. But the official story that's coming out about COVID is 100% accurate and to be believed, and questioning that makes you a dangerous person.
You also see it with the way that
right,
debate
exactly.
Go ahead.
And I think that it's Julian wrote in 2006. He wrote an essay called "Conspiracy," and in there, he was able to analyze the structure of power, how it works, and it's basically the network of transnational corporations and the government that works in secret, and they conspire in agendas. And the only reason that they can work against the interest of the population and put forward their agenda is because they are able to hide plans and then also manipulate public perception. And so that's the reason why Julian created WikiLeaks, a kind of way to against conspiracy of the governance, and also open regime uses that controls the information and distort perception. And then this, and then when I came to realize is this pandemic is what's happening behind this price, so to speak, is a very revealed to me that it's that in a sense I feel like we are living within, or deception. It comes in layers that you have this one narrative, and then if you unveil if there is deception, then it's come years, and that in the political arena there is this veil that is basically pretty much based this two-party paradigm, lesser of the two evils, the Trump versus the new candidate like Joe Biden, or there is this Democrat divide and conquer being used. So you see this, but as you unveil this surface narrative, it's a deeper narrative. One might call the transhumanism agendas. It's something that goes deeper than just about democracy. It's something to do with humans who control.
Yeah.
Will you see if you can get her to pop back in, but just with audio, Josh? Okay.
Damn it, Kevin.
Right? I do like that she touched on this may serve a larger transhumanist agenda, because that's kind of been the tone in the last couple of times that I've had Whitney Webb on the show. And again today with Vanessa Biliu, we touched on that. And
That interview was
basically,
great, by the way.
you what?
I said that interview was great, by the way. I watched that earlier. It was all.
Thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed having her on today. That was awesome. That's going to happen again. I want to hear what my co-hosts think about the possibility of this moving towards a transhumanist place, because it's also something that has been discussed about a little bit in the Cypherpunk series.
I mean, it's something that we're already seeing. You can literally go on MIT's website and look up their robotics and their biokinetics and all those other kinds of different ways that they're integrating systems into humans already, to the point that you can get a literal square cut out of your brain and get the modern day lobotomy microchip put in from Elon Musk and have your neurological system completely interface with an artificial system. So this is already the steady plan, is, or at least in my opinion, is to push us towards that techno dystopian future.
Well, did you guys see the Corona dogs that they had in the park? The little robot dogs that was
Spot. Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy. You guys, that's insane. We can't let that happen. That's nuts. Can you imagine like that thing attacking a small child somewhere?
Happened.
A kid ran up to its mom or something and disobeyed social distancing. That's nuts. We can't allow that shit to happen. That's crazy.
There's a video on Boston Dynamics Twitter feed from last year where that dog has like an arm coming out of its head and it can open doors and hold the door open for its little robot dog buddies.
That's nuts. Do that.
That's not supposed to happen.
I think it's inevitable. I mean, I think that's just where we're headed. I think we would be foolish not to see that coming. That's the direction we're heading. But that's, to me, that's terrifying. Those dogs cruising around. I mean, imagine like, a 4-year-old runs up to its mom because it skinned its knee, and the dog is like, oh, that whatever that is just disobeyed social distancing and like attacked it. That's nuts.
I don't know if you caught this episode of my show or not, but we put up a picture of a robot that the Tunisian police have been employing over there, and it looks like a 4-wheel drive Dalek. It really does. Like, it just needs the voice attached to it. And yeah, when that little kid skins its knee, one of those things pops up. It's all exterminate, but next thing you know, you got a freaking barbecue toddler, and you can't sue anybody.
Yeah,
because they violated social distancing, so it's your fault.
Or because you signed it.
I apologize to the A for A audience if I'm a little over the top this evening. We can go back to talking about calm things like the death of press freedom.
Well, I think that they go together. I mean, I think that's the whole point that we're talking about with this discourse, and not being completely dumbed down, is that, I mean, look at how it is when you haven't done an update in your computer, and now we want to have this type of technology like interfacing with our brain and things like that. I mean, and then not to mention, to your point too about George Bush, we have these people who we know throughout decades have committed war crimes, especially from the WikiLeaks releases, we know for a fact, in Iraq and Afghanistan. And then but yet these same people are going to make, no one's questioning that these people are making these decisions for us. And these are like permanent type decisions on people, that wouldn't necessarily go well for them.
When we're being told to expect a new normal and also a second wave of COVID, like very soon, when you stop and think that none of the people who are making these decisions have been elected, there's been 0 hours, days, or minutes of public comment on this. We can't even go to our respective city halls, let alone the halls of Congress, and have any kind of debate with our elected officials about this. They're just following orders, and all they can do is try and scramble to make sure that the wealthiest corporations get the lion's share of whatever relief money they can cough up. Like that's those are the conditions by which we unite and strike and march. We need that small window of either enough people that are like, fuck it, let's go do some civil disobedience, I don't care, or we need that, like, I guess, permissible window where we can overwhelm the people inside the halls of power with sheer numbers. Okay.
Yeah, I think we have Nozomi back with us. So I want to thank you very much for getting through all this here with us with the technology. But yeah, if we could get that second slide pulled up on here. We were discussing your article, and you had a part about privatized censorship. And the part that I really want to focus in on, you had talked about the censorship of collateral murder. And you said Google has been accused of discriminating against conservative viewpoints and suppressing free speech. YouTube, one of Google's subsidiaries, is now censoring the WikiLeaks collateral murder video. Real images of war that expose the U.S. military's brutal killing of innocent Iraqi civilians, including 2 Reuters journalists, is now assisting in the inappropriate for some, is now assigned to the inappropriate for some categories, severely compromising its viewership. Meanwhile, many millions of YouTube videos, of which tens of thousands depict violence, are allowed to be played without restriction. We recently had the 10-year anniversary of the collateral murder releases. Could you talk a little bit about the privatization of censorship and things like Google's removal of collateral murder from listed? I think we lost her again. Cool. Sorry about the technical issues, guys.
Well, that was fun. That was fun. It was. That was an experience. I needed to feel like I was on stage at a concert when it's feedbacking and I've eaten too many mushrooms. I haven't, felt that way all day. I guess let's go to the next slide.
Yeah, I'm maybe not surprised that Kevin's giving us issues, because Nozomi always has such a, just an excellent perspective on things,
And this is the cyber warfare one, yeah. Oh, god damn it, and it skipped on me. What the heck, dude? A little over a year before his arrest inside the embassy, Assange gave a dire warning. Quote, "The future of humanity is the struggle," this is what we just read out earlier, I'll read it again. "The future of humanity is the struggle between humans that control machines and machines that control humans. In this digital age, a battle for free speech is not fought on the political ground alone, with legislators, corporate lobbyists, senators, and presidents. Civil liberties are being eroded by an algorithmic control dictated by the Silicon Valley tech titans. They use AI in ways that act beneath conscious awareness, manipulating reality at a speed and level that humans can no longer keep up with to control perception." You are kidding me. My hotkeys are skipping like crazy. Now, the machines seem to be out of control, fueling cyber warfare. In 2017, WikiLeaks released the largest publication of confidential... Where did this go? What the hell? There we go. Confidential documents, codename Vault 7. Why is this jumping around on me like this? Source from the top secret security network at Cyber Intelligence Center. This release revealed that the CIA had lost control of the cyber weapons it had developed. What is alarming is that the CIA became aware of this loss, but didn't warn the public about it. Now, this horrific arsenal that was designed to hide all traces of its own actions is loosed upon the world and can be used for malicious purposes by cyber mafias, foreign agents, hackers, and anyone else who eventually got their hands on it. The CIA's covert hacking program and their weaponized exploits target a wide range of US and European company products. The series of documents and files categorized in year 0 revealed the specific CIA malware that grants the agency capacity to penetrate Google's Android phone and Apple's iPhone software, the very software that runs or has run presidential Twitter accounts, and avoid or manipulate fingerprints in any subsequent forensic review. An example of the abuse of this power is found in evidence of CIA espionage targeting French political parties and candidates in the lead up to the 2012 presidential election. And that's the thing. Like, this is something that, and we'll touch on it a little bit in the Assange Smears article. But Vault 7 happened under Donald Trump's watch. It was a 2017 release that talked about exactly what Trump's CIA was doing and Obama's CIA was doing. One of the common smears is that Julian Assange never put out anything on Donald Trump, but my Vault 7 and my Vault 8, you know, and my OPCW. Like, it's asinine to me. If you're there, Nozomi, maybe, I don't know. I'm gonna try coming back to you. Oh, you'll have to unmute.
I think we may have lost her again.
To your point, though, Steve, and what you had just read, one of the things I was thinking about back to our other conversation is it's like, okay, so here's the, CIA that lost track of all of these things. And then you have, big tech I don't know if they ever did work with anybody on this, but I mean, this is the same group of people that is controlling everything right now. It's not reliable. It's just quite frustrating and terrifying.
And these tools are used for literally any and everything across the board. And the fact that people don't really know, or that it never really made enough attention, that the CIA's literal toolkits, like the weapons that they build to attack other countries and gain access to computer systems, got released not really to the public, but across the internet in and of itself, which is extremely dangerous because it can literally be used as weapons against people through digital space. And the fact that this was never brought into the larger spotlight and addressed as a huge issue really just shows that whole narrative management that goes on, where the CIA is always framed as the good guys and the heroes. But I think WikiLeaks actually did work with a lot of the companies to try to get them and show them how to patch up the holes that were found in Vault 7. If you haven't had a chance to look at it just in general, I would go to the WikiLeaks website, because they have tons of different releases about Vault 7 and specific details about different weaponry that were being used. It's probably, honestly, one of the largest collections of internet weaponry. It's almost like a museum for the World War II buffs of cyber espionage, almost. Do we have you back with us, Nozomi?
Yeah, this is getting frustrating. Okay.
Well, we appreciate you joining us. We were discussing the CIA.
I think that the important, what I want to say about both WikiLeaks support on this is that the CIA hacking tool, it revealed the CIA's capacity to hack president's Twitter account, for instance, or even manipulate certain data, and importantly, most importantly, they could avoid any leaving any footprint, and it can even manipulate the forensic evidence. So that way, it's capable of interfering with some election, as was in the documents that they actually were intervening French presidential election. So, you know, when WikiLeaks throw into the whole brain, Donald Trump's presidential is this Russia gate, maybe be asking questions about what about CIA? CIA has capacity to actually interfere with other countries' elections. So maybe their ability and the importance of maybe investigating potential of CIA doing things that WikiLeaks is accused of doing. And that's the reason why the former CIA officer Mike Pompeo, he came out very strongly right after WikiLeaks report 7 that WikiLeaks need to be shut down, and calling WikiLeaks as a hostile known state intelligence agency. And Mike Pence also was adamant, you know, right after that publication, that he said that he had to go after who released these documents. So, you know, Julian prosecuted just for documents that relate to 2010 the documents relating to war in Afghanistan and Iraq. I mean, he is being actively pursued for the Vote 7 publication. And I think it's another important thing, since the Google CEO, former Google Eric Schmidt, he sit on board of the state of defense's innovation team, which help Department of Defense to create military technology, and he's actively developing it. What does that mean? And you know, how it relates to you know, why would Google be involved in the development of U.S. military technology? That's something also I think we need to pay attention to. So it's not just about politicians, but it's about giant tech companies that are behind orchestrating the whole thing. So one of the things I think Julian understood very well, and also the WikiLeaks publication let us see, is it's no longer the politicians being in charge, but it's something deeper. It's involved money. It involves technocracy, and it's involved totalitarianism that is run by, you know, technocrats basically.
Well, and I remember him, you know, tweeting about that shortly before his internet got cut off, and then also one of the last videos that he did in the embassy was exactly about that. You know, that this is the first time that really all of this information is being fed back to us. And I mean, I know I personally have watched that a few different times because it's just so dense with information, and that, you know, that speaks just to the point that you were talking about, that there's, you know, it's these tech companies that are a big threat right now as well, especially given that they, in so many ways through algorithms, control, you know, what we can even search on the web or what even comes up for most people. I think that's a hard thing to even try to find the truth out there. It's a difficult task that most people aren't, you know, necessarily up to. You know, when you see like 7 articles that say something opposite of what you've just told, that come, you know, right up in the search engine. So I feel like
it's not even that people aren't up to it, I don't think. I mean, in some cases, obviously, but I think also that people are just like, they're tired. and they're busy and they're working 2 jobs or 3 jobs, and they are, they come home and they sit in front of the TV and they read their newspaper maybe, or they watch some MSNBC and think that they're informing themselves. And most people don't have a clue. They're completely clueless as to what, my husband has to remind me all the time that not everybody knows what's going on. And I'm trying to do better about being more patient with people, but there's a pretty sizable part of the population that they just don't know. They have no idea what's going on. I don't know how to talk about that either.
I was going to ask you that question, Nozomi, with what you're... Oh, sorry. I was just going to ask you that question with your, background in specific area in psychology. What do you think is happening to people in this social situation under this, this oppression of propaganda, basically?
Well, I think that for me, when I research more and more, what we have is like what I call a sick deception. So there is this idea that system is called pathocracy, which is basically the individuals who have personalities, severe personality disorders, psychopathy. They are the ones who are placed in the position of, they create this hierarchical system and control masses. So it's no longer just typical like fascism or totalitarianism or extreme capitalism. These are, in my opinion, no longer able to explain the system of control that we have. And so, and then what's interesting to me is that when I was researching about this psychopathy, the certain condition, the psychological condition that is displayed by a sector of humanity, is that the ideology was initially in the DSM, for instance, diagnostic statistical personality disorders, the clinician referred to as like a Bible. But in 1980s, the definition was changed into antisocial personality. And once it's really essential aspect, characteristics of psychopaths, which involves more affective elements like lack of remorse and shallow emotions and inability to empathize with others. These are more the things that are that involves emotions. But instead, antisocial personality disorder made it look like it's all about just criminal behaviors. They were the observable, being break laws or being violent or all those more explicit, I think, the more observable behaviors. So then that makes it dangerous that this understanding of psychopathy and this individuals with this disturbing personality disorders be hidden from rest of us, basically. And there's a reason behind this change has occurred. What's going on is that are kept away from understanding basically these individuals with disturbing characteristics. And because of our lack of knowledge, that makes vulnerable to their manipulation and exploitation. And whatever we are seeing now, manipulation of information, they're carefully, acted, for the propaganda that they use, they use secrecy and manipulation, restriction of information, that Julian actually came to quite understand and wrote in his essay, 2006 essay, as as governance. And what he described is basically it's the very working of psychopaths, that how they form networks and how they work in a way that is detrimental to the population. And then who are, majority of us with emphasize, so that we can imagine, we cannot imagine that they function, so that we project our good nature. We are trusting, we assume goodness in people, so that we cannot really imagine that such evil exists. So that's why I think that if we change politicians, if we change system here and there, then it's gonna be solved. But so that we, go to electoral arena, trying to appeal to politicians, appeal to the conscience of politicians, for instance, and to change. But the system itself, of course, there are individuals, political leaders and billionaires that exhibit the psychopathic tendency, going to point fingers at the good part here. But I'm not qualified. More like the systemically within the psychopathic system. Psychopath uses deception. Psychopathy is an illness, moral insanity, so that they are not insane. Okay, they are rational. They are intelligent. So that means that they, they are rational. So that you can maybe talk with them, and then what they make sense, and like they are delusional. But because of oftentimes that they intelligence, but they have immaturity in their emotional development, to the point that they don't even have emotions, that they mimic behavior, how they observe behavior, and what makes us tick, then they will mimic and they will mirror these emotional responses. And now what's happening, of course, is that with deployment of machine and the creation of AI, the AI is now, the Google search engine, for instance, all those surveillance that is implemented in our society, they are learning about us. They are studying about humans, and then they learn, respond. And because they themselves, the machine, don't have ability to feel, that they don't have emotions, that they can't praise themselves, social relationships, and to be able to, see things from others' perspectives, which is the definition of empathy. They lack this, and so they mimic. They to, learn the way that by cognitively understand we interact, we emotionally respond, and that they are the ones who increasingly learning how to manipulate our emotions, and then they understand our abilities because they are socialists, basically. So what would happen that, before it was just the individuals who are psychopaths, basically running the societies, creating this totalitarianism or great state, ever, the form of the systems that we have. But now what thing like I is going to automate the system, which is completely psychic. So here we are headed, in my opinion. And again, the way to resist this is really for people to understand what psychopathy is, and understand that there is a sector of humanity that's different, radically different from us. We cannot really, we have to learn to protect ourselves, by learning and gaining the knowledge about these social predators. So that's that's the crucial thing for us to engage and educate. Understand our vulnerabilities, so that exploited emotionally, and they, and then that's, again and again, how people are emotionally exploited in an electoral arena. That we now have, Trump derangement syndrome, or we had earlier, but Bush syndrome. All those kind of emotional responses that, that almost kind of verges toward hysteria. And there was the research what would happen for the society moved into complete totalism or breakdown of society. He observed that there is a cycle of fear prior to that is shared by correct in society, that is kind of a hysteric symptoms that where they cannot think rationally, and I see this is to some degree happening with Democrats, that after going through this devastating trauma of seeing President Trump being elected, that they're not saying right. Some of them, former New York Times editor, says that let's not investigate the sexual rape allegation of Joe Biden, because we need to defeat Trump. Okay, and so I mean that's very rational, right? I mean, how could someone oppose? I mean, Democrats oppose fundamentally this Trump for his sexual allegation or whatever, and then at the same time they're okay with Joe Biden being engaged in things, and this is only the name of anything but Trump, basically. And so that's one of the ways that people respond irrationally. So, and then that's intentionally done. I mean, this manipulation is intentionally done by the psychopathic system, that, psychopaths who understands our vulnerabilities, understand how you could be easily manipulated, and they use identity to manipulate. So they manipulate the Democrats. So they are the victims of massive propaganda and psychopathic deception. I mean, when we talk about how to address the issues of freedom, and of course that we come up against is, when I talk to progressives, I cannot engage with rational discussion because of the fact that they are emotionally disturbed, and that the first I have to acknowledge their emotions, that they need to be validated, that their emotional trauma. So I went on and on. I think what I want to say is that we are very naive about truly understand humanity and its wholeness. That it's not just a consistency of us who are empathy. It's true that they are a sector of humanity who doesn't have empathy, and what that means to us, and is it really get rid of this naive assumption, able to maybe create a system that is more realistic, that accept our differences, so to speak.
So I would like to thank you very much, Nozomi, for joining us tonight. We hope to have you back soon, and hopefully we'll have a little bit of a better internet connection then. But if you could, please give people your final thoughts and where they can find you and your work.
My thoughts. Actually, yeah, I wanted to read from Big. And what he said, I wanted to share that with you. He said, between stimulus and response, in that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Everything can be taken from a man, but one that asks of human freedoms, one's at any given set of circumstances to choose one's own way. And then Julian said that, he said this in 2007, every time we witness an injustice and do not act, we train our character to be passive in its presence, and thereby eventually lose our ability to us and those we love. I think this choice, that for us to make choice, and our right to self-determination, and Julian defended ability to make choice, determine a course of our own future. And for this, that he enormous risk, and he himself worked to preserve this ability for us to make this choice, and in crucial decision back away from net materials because he was afraid of consequences or anything. He made that choice. He used that capacity to make choice. So this is, I think, important for us to remember that we have power to make a choice, our own choice, and this is vital aspect of what makes us human. So, I think it's important for us to not succumb to fear or to be reactionary, but to stay centered and be able to, constantly exercise our ability to make choices. And you can find me on Twitter, Nozomi Imagine, or my website, hayase.com. Thank you for having me.
Nozomi, thank you so much. That was really great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And it looks like we are joined now by friend of the show, independent filmmaker and content creator extraordinaire, the one and only Jason Burmis. Jason, how are you tonight?
I am very happy to be joining you guys, simulcasting on the channel, letting people know that they need to support you guys, and go hit the donations over here at defend.wikileaks.org/donate so you guys can cover that on the ground. How are you, gentlemen and ladies? It's been a while.
It has been. I think the last time you were on, we were barely on martial law. It's been one heck of a journey, my friend. We were just speaking with Nozomi Hayase. She's a wonderful liberation psychologist and author, and has done some really prolific work on Julian Assange. Trying to hammer home the fact that politicians are the public relations firm for unelected global predator class. I know this is something that you touch on fairly frequently. It does get lost in the mix a little bit when you hear secondhand that Eric Schmidt is going to be retooling the education center, system of New York, or you hear, what you got there?
Well, I'll tell you what I have here. I'm so glad that you brought up Eric Schmidt, because I've been on a little bit of a Schmidt kick lately, especially.
You having a Schmidt fit, are you?
I'm having a Schmidt fit. We're going to find out why. A lot of people don't know about his best-selling book called The New Digital Age. It's published in 2013, something I happened to pick up at the time under a hardcover. It's called Reshaping the Future of People, Nations, and Business. And guess who he has a lot to say about in this book? Well, Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. And I'd like to read a couple excerpts out of here, because it comes into being that basically if WikiLeaks was exposing the right people, well, then it would be okay. But since they're not, well, we would expect that future Western governments would ultimately adopt a dissonant position towards digital disclosures, encouraging them abroad in adversarial countries, but prosecuting them ferociously at home. And, they go over the whole entire WikiLeaks situation. And then the next section is the reporting crisis. I wish I could get it without the glare, but there you can see it, the reporting crisis. And in the reporting crisis, it talks about, well, how guys like me will be able to live stream and beat the media. So it will be essential, okay, particularly for the elite, the business leaders, policymakers, and intellectuals who rely on established media. Validation will be critical. In other words, they better validate what we say and believe, as will the media's ability to provide cogent analysis. In fact, the elite will probably rely more on established news organizations simply because of the massive swell of low-grade reporting and information in our system. And Steve, unfortunately, I think yourself, myself, Andrew, and others, we are low-grade reporting to these people, unfortunately. And they want to encourage the prosecution of people like WikiLeaks, public disclosure organizations, as we discuss often, and they want to promote authoritative sources like Brian Stelter that just this week kept promoting the idea that there was a chemical attack in Duma in April of 2018.
Yeah, I look. It's interesting that that book came out in 2012 because Julian Assange released When Google Met WikiLeaks a year ahead of that, which disclosed to anyone who would pick it up and read it just how entrenched Google was, and Eric Schmidt was and is in narrative control and manipulation of public opinion, and what we're talking about earlier with Nozomi, which is discourse control. And now we're almost a decade removed from this, and we're seeing censorship on a level that Crow calls the modern day book burning, is what we're seeing in terms of what's happening with YouTube, what's happening on social media. There are fortunately a few braver platforms like Rockfin that have stepped up over the last year to try and provide an outlet that doesn't lead by censorship. But just today or yesterday, Jason, it was Google's CEO was saying, oh yeah, we push mainstream content, nobody watches it, but we're going to keep doing it.
Of course they're going to keep doing it. And I want to point out his co-author here, Jared Cohen. Boy, he hits a lot of the markers. Not only does he work for Google at the time, obviously, but he's a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, senior member. He's a Rhodes Scholar, and he also is on the National Counterterrorism Force. I mean, this guy was a box checker, and the things that are revealed in this book are unbelievable. To speak of the digital book burning, it was kind of ironic. I did an interview with Tony Gosling. He's out in UK media, basically independent, does some stuff with Richie Allen, and he re-uploads my stuff. Well, lo and behold, they took down our video that he re-uploaded. Now, my version of the video is still there. I have yet, and by the way, yes, those are beds that are on top of FEMA coffins at the Javits Center. They absolutely use those. All right. If you take a good look at that, let's make it big for the audience. But that's a flip over coffin. Those are those plastic coffin liners we talked about. So essentially, had it gotten bad, they were basically planning on taking those patients that were in critical condition, dying, and then flipping it over. That's how our government thinks. It's very pragmatic. So anyway, this video got totally pulled from his channel, saying again, they looked at it and no, we flagged it for review. Still on my channel. I've been fully demonetized now. You know, that is out there. I put it up for review, but I almost wish I could go back. I probably can through my things and see if that video, which I think it did, I think that got manually reviewed and remonetized. It shows you how arbitrary their system is. My video with more views than the video they took down is still up. It's the exact same thing. It has not been flagged. And originally, I think that their moderators remonetized it. So what standards are we going by? That's what I'd like to know.
Well, we have absolutely no press standards in the U.S. You have independent press like WikiLeaks and other organizations that literally put out raw, unvarnished, truthful information. And then you have the spin media, the mainstream media, the literal damage control for oil companies and the military industrial complex. And that's the majority of what the media we have even is and exists as. When you go to major cities where these media hubs are, you can like walk through DC, for example, and every single subway basically says, yeah, we're the Koch brothers, we built that. And it lists everything that the Koch brothers own, to the point that they literally own the public transportation system. And so when people like this also buy advertisements on large media stations, they're doing so knowing that their interests are protected.
Well, and one of
and let's just talk about the digital platforms for a second, because right now, even the New York Post, who's not the greatest source, you know, one of their latest botches is they posted those staged Ghislaine Maxwell photos. You know, no one trusts the Post, but they dared run an opinion piece that questioned whether or not this might be a virus that leaked from a biolab, which is now almost the mainstream narrative. Can't call it a bioweapon, still have to say it leaked from a biolab in China into an animal, into a bat, but it went that route. And Facebook is censoring the New York Post for not going along with the narrative. And they're doing op-eds against them. At the same time, the media refuses to report on what? Thousands of protesters in Germany. Show me where that was in American media. You can barely find it in European media. It happened this Saturday. But they're all too ready to have the social distancing ambassadors, 2,300 in New York City alone, to say, no, 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 stand there, wear your mask, be good. And then on top of that, they are now going to hire 17,000 trace contact officers in their track trace army. That's their word for it. I've been saying track trace database society for 15 years, and now it's a fucking government slogan. It's unbelievable to me that we're allowing this in this country. And I'm on my way out of New York. I got to tell you, the exodus is here. I'm going to be gone, I think, by September 1st. I got to find somewhere where it's a little less insane, but I won't be able to fly there because some of the new regulations, guys, that they're putting out in this COVID 1984 nonsense. Let me read it verbatim for you because it's almost unbelievable. Among the steps under consideration, no cabin bags, no lounges, no automatic upgrades, face masks, surgical gloves, self-check-in, self-bag drop-off, immunity passports, on-the-spot blood tests, and sanitation disinfection tunnels like you saw in China. That's what they're proposing. You got to be there 4 hours early and possibly go through all those hoops to fly on a plane. Look who's driving. It's this guy.
I think
that
that's what's
changes
really
my plans for DC a little bit. Yeah, no, I'm not flying out September 5th to go to San Jose International Airport or San Francisco International Airport to go sit around for 4 to 6 hours and get to quote the great Arlo Guthrie, inspected, injected, neglected, and selected. That's not gonna happen to me, man. I'm not gonna roll that way. No, and we've got the exact same situations going on here in California too, Jason. There's the contact trace army is being released. I think they're rolling it out over the weekend, and that's a couple thousand just in the area that I live in. I'm right outside of Silicon Valley. We've got public open space hall monitors now with like little snitch badges that they got handed to them by someone who's not even enforcing a law that's on the books. Not even on the books.
You're right.
Putting out that video that said police officers don't have you don't need to go over the line always. We still have a constitution. We're still following the constitution. You can't cite a law when you're trying to arrest these people, so stop arresting him. And they fired that guy.
Yes, they did. Yeah, and we're going to see more and more of that. We need pushback. I'm not sure if you guys saw this yet, but there's a couple great videos I would recommend you check out when you get a chance. I thought I was watching a trailer for a new Kevin James movie. It's called Out of Touch, and all I can say is it's 2 million of hilarious, scary brilliance for this time period. So after this, check that out. And then Jim Brewer, of all people, put up a Facebook video where he really called out the politicians. He's like, can you see what's going on here? He's like, we had people over for the first time. It wasn't a Zoom meeting. It felt good. He's like, what are these politicians worried about? Voting. How are you going to vote? He's like, I don't care what side you're on. He's like, mail-in votes, that isn't for me. And he's like, why are these governors who don't care about you? He's like, well, maybe one or two do. I don't know. But for the most part, they don't care about you. They care about money and power, and they're greedy. That's what they care about. He's like, look what's going on. I was blown away. And we need more of that. And, maybe the one positive thing of this entire situation is more and more people have now woken up to the fact that censorship has now touched their lives in a very real way when they post something on Facebook or Twitter and it's removed. I mean, that Plandemic documentary, love it or hate it, it went as viral as anything since Coney 2012, and they did their damnedest over, I'd say, a 36-hour to 48-hour period to shuffle that into the mix. And again, I said to people, you know, people that were like bashing it, this and that, because one of the big bash fests is that, oh, Judy Miskovitz is not credible because of the FBI, and they said she took stuff. I go, what FBI are we fucking talking about? You mean the FBI in 1993 that cooked the World Trade Center bomb? Maybe it was the FBI that stormed Waco and then firebombed a bunch of kids. That FBI? The FBI that covered up 9/11? Maybe it's the FBI that ignored Maria Farmer in 1996 when she spoke out against Epstein. You know, what FBI are we talking about? The FBI that lied about Russian collusion? I mean, what fucking world do you believe in that you think that the FBI is here to be our friend? They ain't. They ain't. So that just gives her story more credibility to me, that the FBI went after her in particular. That should be a credibility builder, not that she's a liar. And no one really has an answer for that. They're like, the FBI is good, Jason. I love my FBI. Without my FBI, there is no America in apple pie and baseball, Jason. I mean, come on. What world are we living in here?
It's the same one that where NCIS is the longest running television show outside of The Simpsons, where you get pro-empire, pro-government, pro-military, pro-FBI propaganda 100% of the time. This is a show that's been on for like 20 years. They get reinforcing propaganda that the FBI equals good basically every time you turn on a cop-related drama on any one of the dozens of different outlets that are keeping people occupied during their self-imposed quarantine. And then when you try to go to YouTube to find something cool to watch, it's suppressed or it's taken down. It's hidden in the search algorithms. It's banned on Facebook. It's, it's more often than not, like the thumbnails don't even show up on my videos anymore.
Well, I think too, it's like propaganda about that these organizations even have their shit together, which they don't. You know, I mean, we were just discussing the CIA losing track of, internet type weapons that now everybody can use and hackers can use and things like that, or an FBI that's incapable of really investigating anything honestly. So I think it's just ridiculous.
I agree. And they want you watching things like The Tiger King. Well, I'm going to clue people in on The Tiger King just so everybody understands. His niece says not only was he like freezing little tigers, whatever. Okay, I'm not the big animal rights guy. I'm not saying that's right. It's wrong. How about taping sexual activity with the animals? Where was that in the show? And I guarantee you that is the legit. They'd rather have you praising Exotic Joe, a man that filmed bestiality and probably took part in it as well. Look at that freak show. Does anybody doubt that? I mean, really? And that is unreported, almost unreported. Daily Mail's the only one will cover it. It blows my mind that that's the biggest thing out there. I watched it. It was interesting for like 10 minutes, and like I could give a fuck about Carol Baskin. Did she murder her husband? I don't care. There are bigger issues out there, folks. If you haven't noticed, our entire country is being eviscerated before our eyes. The economy is just starting to really visibly show these hits. My old boss and one of my best friends, I go over to this place called Tino's Pizza, home of the cold cheese. Go check it out if you're ever in Oneonta, New York. Go there to get coffee in the morning all the time. His distributor of 25 years went under 2 days ago. Maine's food supply, which supplies the Northeast with a lot of food, went under. They're not going to let the colleges come back. You know what that means for my area? Half the businesses are done. They're dead. They're over. They're gone. They're gone. They don't come back. And meanwhile, all the big companies, all the big corporations, the airlines, the cruise lines, any type of military industrial complex prop up, they're all going to get bailed out. We're all going to be indebted to the Federal Reserve while they pile on the fear. And I'm telling you guys, the fear is far from over. You know, one of the things I was talking about is now this new COVID-19 related virus and rash that's killing kids in New York. And a lot of people are going to see that, say that's fake. And if you haven't seen it yet, I can assure you that it is not. They've now said 5 kids have died from this. It looks like Kawasaki disease. You can look that up. I know it's not just a bike, but please go look it up. And how I knew it was real is my source in Brooklyn, who was feeding me stuff about the numbers, and the first one to tell me most people were not making it on vents. His son, who is an infant, got sick 2 months ago. And he actually got pulled from the hospital over a month ago because it got that bad. He's still undiagnosed. He is not counted amongst these kids. He is sure his kid has this because he has the rash-like symptoms. And I asked him straight up, I go, do you think that they're underreporting or they're overreporting this right now? He's like, I think they're underreporting it and they're going to ramp it up. And that's when people are going to get a little bit more scared. The other thing is we look at this virus and now they're finding it in men's semen months later. This has all the earmarks of a bio weapon, not some leaked bio virus. I think that's horseshit. And when you prop up, now it's going to be China versus America. I got news for you. Eric fucking Schmidt helped make Dragonfly the censored internet engine for China. That is what he does. All right. He says he doesn't work for those guys anymore, and he's not even a consultant. Well, he sure was an advocate and a consultant for Google when he was praising them on television 2 years ago. And if you think our internet is much different, I got news for you. It was really hard for me to even find this article on Germany and, the tens of thousands of people that were out in the streets protesting lockdown. It is mind-blowing right now, guys.
Well, and Eric Schmidt still on the board of Alphabet, Google's parent company. Eric Schmidt is still on a board at the Department of Defense. Eric Schmidt is one of those people who will always be on one or another board of some nefarious company. And to further the point, man, during the Kavanaugh hearings, there were Google executives testifying in front of a different congressional select committee all about how China had rolled out successfully their heavily censored internet. How about China had done how they'd done their cloud-based surveillance. And and we were all distracted with Brett Kavanaugh, and we were all distracted with what's her name, Ford. And now the same people that were screaming about Christine Ford are telling you that you can't believe someone named Tara Reid because
that's a legitimate story.
Yeah, because the letter at the end of the candidate's name is a different letter. So I guarantee you.
Meanwhile, pushing for no debates and mail-in votes. You talk about a Orwellian wet dream for the predator class, man. We are here, and I'm sick and tired of hearing that, Google's a private company and YouTube's a private business. No, they are fucking not. See, that's my problem. Everybody says, well, we need to regulate them like they're a utility. No, we don't. Okay, it's not a mutually exclusive idea that we don't need to regulate them because they're not a private company. When Google is in bed with NASA, Goldman Sachs, Amazon, and Lockheed Martin, as long as 10 years ago, on top of a number of other things they're involved in, but in specifically quantum computing and artificial intelligence, that is not a private company. That is not what that is. That is a technopoly. That's what that is. That is an untouchable class of people that do what they want and answer to no one under the guise of a national security state and nothing more. That is what that is. And as soon as we identify and say, wait a minute, that's not constitutional, that not only are they a part of these government systems, but they don't pay any taxes. What's going on? And they control our search engines and they can censor anything they want. And they're allowed to listen to everything we do with ACR technology, automated content recognition. I mean, give me a break. This stuff is all in your face. It's all public. And most people are so unaware of it. It's maddening. But I got to tell you, they're starting to wake up.
No, I mean, I agree with that. Oh, and I also just remembered because Whitney was on my show, Whitney Webb was on my show on Monday. Eric Schmidt, part of the National Security Council on Artificial Intelligence. Right? Yeah. That's just another thing, another pie that he's got. Creepy pies. That's what Whitney was calling him on the show. I almost named the episode that, Creepy Pies. But yeah, it's what Eric Schmidt has been able to do in light of all of the evidence that has come out against him shows you how entrenched the narrative manipulation is, shows you how entrenched the discourse control is. I'm going to let one of my co-hosts talk though, because I've been rambling for most of your segment, Jay.
Bueller?
Right?
I was just seeing who's going to jump in. I will hop in here then. So we wanted to talk with you, Jason, about an article that Caitlin Johnstone put up in regards to a bunch of smears against Julian Assange. If we can get that up on screen. I just want to read through some of the different smears that were put in place, though, that they introduced through the mainstream media and through the manipulation of social media platforms. 1, he's not a journalist. 2, he's a rapist. 3, he was hiding from rape charges inside the embassy. 4, he's a Russian agent. 5, he's being prosecuted for hacking and espionage crimes, not journalism. 6, he should go to America to face the music. If he's innocent, he's got nothing to fear. 7, well, he'll jump bail. Of course, the UK had to arrest him. And there's multiple others. And this article was designed to basically lay it out and then provide the context to debunk the smears and provide the resources and everything for that. So I was just wondering if you could lead us in here a little bit, talking about just the general character assassination of Julian Assange and the larger ways that they do this to other people too.
Sure. I mean, in this book, that's the propaganda machine. They talk about how the Manning leaks probably got people killed. And they also, you know what? There's another, where did I put that book? Because there's so much important about that. They actually talk about how they lie and smear that the only reason he redacted anything, here it is, was for financial reasons. Indeed, Assange told us he redacted only to reduce the international pressure that was financially strangling him and said he would have preferred no redactions. Now, I would have preferred no redactions, but to say that it was because of financial restrictions, that's jackassery. He did so that number one, so he couldn't actually be prosecuted for committing any crimes because he didn't commit any crimes. He didn't put anybody's life in danger. All right. Again, I would have preferred the raw redactions, but for them to, again, use just a small smear like that and say, oh, it was financially motivated. Oh, he's raping people. You know, the success of those campaigns shows itself when we're on the streets of DC and a 65-year-old man sees us protesting and goes, he's a rapist. And you got to try to set him straight. You know, their machine works well to the masses because the masses, unfortunately, don't really pay attention. They like things like confirmation bias. They like their infotainment. It's not even information anymore. It's not journalism. It's packaged in this entertaining way where they're keeping you on the edge and you're playing team baseball. Trump is bad on everything except for the things he's really bad on, right? Like if you start saying, well, he did launch those missiles into Syria, that was a bad thing. No, that's a good thing, according to CNN. Assad gasses his own people, and everybody toes that narrative. It's maddening to an extent, especially because they are the authoritative sources that are propped up by who? Google and Schmidt and YouTube. And the thing is, the only reason that Schmidt left in 2018, and anybody can go check it out, and remember, he was a consultant. He didn't really leave. He's saying, by the way, now, Steve, he's not even a consultant of Alphabet. I do want to let you know that. He's denied all ties. But the reason he left in 2018 is because the Me Too movement was getting hot. And old Schmitty hasn't been the best. You know, I know he's a social justice warrior in the media, and he's a supporter of Hillary Clinton, and he wants to believe all women except the ones that have accused him.
Let me tell you something. I'm going to tell you a story. All right. I used to work for a roofing company out here in Santa Cruz County. One of my very first jobs, the job sites that I went on, was a house that Eric Schmidt owned out in Mountain View. The entire 3 weeks I was there, never saw him, but I did see the string cheese incident and a whole bunch of hookers. and I know they were hookers because I saw them take money and then they performed acts of sexual gratification on the people that paid them. So it's not like speculation on my part that they were hookers. But yeah, like we wanted he wanted a an enclosed or a pool with a roof on one of the spots, and then we had to roof a like a guest cottage / dressing room area. And yeah, we were there a good while, and there were a lot of chicks in various state of undress. It was difficult to concentrate while you're on a roof. Like I don't encourage anyone to go roof around extreme nudity. Like it's distracting. It is. But that's like my only experience here in California with anything Eric Schmidt related was roofing the guy's house and watching the string cheese incident and a bunch of chicks. Like,
since you mentioned the string cheese incident, I would be remiss not to mention that they actually are the ones that gave Dylan, Corey, and I of Loose Change fame all the tickets to. We went to Bonnaroo in 2018. They gave us like all access passes. So we got there the first day and we had our camera equipment. We were just going up on stage and filming stuff, and everybody was leaving us alone. It was great. So shout out to String Cheese, man. Really appreciate it. They ended up playing twice during that weekend. I caught them both times. Really good show. Good times. Good times. See, there's still good things in life. I'm hoping humanity makes a comeback. I want to shake hands again. I want to hug. I'd love to have a beer with everybody again. That sure was fun, huh? That was neat.
Yeah. Stuffed Ruth Bader Ginsburg dolls. Well, it was great, man. It was great.
Guys, I do have to wrap this up because I've been going hard all day. Why don't you tell people how they can support you and donate to this very, very important cause so you guys can go overseas and cover this, hopefully without a blood test, disinfectant, an immunity passport, and so on.
You want to take this one, Andrew?
Yeah, you can find us on Action for Assange. That's the number 4, Assange.com. We put out weekly calls to actions along with our vigils. This is our 45th week of doing vigils. You can find us on Twitter right at Jason Burmis's tag, but it is action_4 Assange. We have a GoFundMe that we launched for DC, our second round of protests, because Julian's court trial is scheduled for September. So we hope that everyone can help out with that if you can. If not, help us share the link. But I really appreciate you joining us, Jason.
Listen, it's a blast every time, guys, and I'm going to try to make it more often. I'm not going to lie. The last couple months, I've been in a little bit of a funk. I mean, I'm watching like 4 hours of press conferences sometimes a day. That's been peeled back to about an hour and a half. Now I don't have to catch de Blasio, Cuomo, Trump, and try to make sense of everything. I'm still going through a massive amount of articles. I'm still going to my sources on the ground, and I'm really just trying to figure out how we're going to fight this thing, because we have seen, like I predicted, unfortunately, a restructuring of society like we have never seen before in a rapid pace. And it's not just America. This is global. This is important. And Assange is at the crux of the issue of freedom of speech, real journalism, and exposing lies and corruption, no matter where they lie. So, guys, I thank you as always for joining me over here too. And Andrew and everybody else, let's get some time on my show, huh? Can I get one of you a piece? Just hit me up on Twitter. We'll get you in next week for sure. I love doing the interviews with you guys. You're totally insightful, and it's good to see people with action on the ground. So thank you guys again.
Thanks, Jason.
Hell yeah. And I think while we're to circle back to the debunking the Assange smears, because we did do a little bit of preparing for this, if we can now go back and kind of highlight those. We have a couple of slides to pull up, and this is it kind of incorporates a couple that you can get to the meat of here. But this is that he went to the embassy hiding from rape charges. Caitlin Johnstone writes, people who claim Assange was hiding from rape charges are necessarily implicitly making two transparently absurd claims. One, that Assange had no reason to fear U.S. extradition, and two, that Ecuador was lying about its official reasons for granting him asylum. that in fact the Korea government was just in the business of protecting people from rape charges for some weird reason. For its part, the Ecuadorian government was crystal clear in its official statements about the reason it was providing Assange asylum, saying that, quote, there are serious indications of retaliation by the country or countries that produced the information disclosed by Mr. Assange. Retaliation that can put at risk his safety, integrity, and even his life. And that the judicial evidence shows clearly that given an extradition to the United States, Mr. Assange would not have a fair trial. He could be judged by a special or military court, and it is not likely that he would receive a cruel and demeaning treatment, and unlikely that he would receive cruel and demeaning treatment, and he would be condemned to a life sentence or the death penalty, which would not respect his human rights. Man, I'm really angry at my laptop today.
I'll pick it up.
I got it.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of the rank and file Assange haters you'll encounter on online forums are just completely clueless about what political asylum is and how it works, because they received their information from the same mass media, which led 70% of Americans to still believe Saddam was behind 9/11 6 months after the Iraq invasion. They either believe that A, Assange found some strange loophole which enabled him to hide from all criminal charges simply by staying in an embassy without any permission from that embassy's government, or B, the Ecuadorian government hands out political asylum willy-nilly to anyone who's been accused of sexual assault. These beliefs can only be maintained by a rigorous determination not to think about them too hard.
And can we just take a second too to like thank Caitlin Johnstone for this article, because I can't imagine, it's long, you guys. Like it hits, and she keeps adding to it. So if any smear you can think of, you can go. I can't tell you the number of times I have used this article on Twitter or I went to see my shrink a couple weeks ago and I showed him some stuff from her article. Like it's got everything that you need, and I can't imagine how long it took for her to put it together. So, I mean, thank you to her for that, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I know our group, we had somebody, and it was such an excellent article, and she put it out, pretty much right away after he was arrested. I remembered it coming out pretty soon. I know our group used it. We condensed it, but we have it on a flyer that we hand out. It's super helpful.
Yeah, and it really highlights the absurdity of the arguments. But the problem is people aren't ever presented with the fact that Julian Assange did a heroic action in revealing the war crimes that were going on and revealing all of the things that he's done throughout the ages. Like, I think the biggest smear that makes me, I don't know, like just frustrated in the whole political arena is the way that people say, well, Julian helped Donald Trump win, when all he did was just reveal factual information that, if anything, could have helped Bernie Sanders win back in the day. What, Josh?
You're jumping out of order of the slides, Andrew.
I'm sorry.
You are. You're not supposed to take the slides out of order. What are we having meetings for? Jesus, guy. I'm kidding. But I love Andrew very much. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump to the second slide, if we could, please.
I can go ahead and, do you want me to read this one, the smear 7?
Please do.
Okay. So he jumped bail. The UK had to arrest him. This smear is soundly refuted in this lucid article by Salmon Floth, which was endorsed by the Defend Assange campaign. So that's linked if you guys pull up this article from Cato's. So Floth explains that under British law, bail is only breached if there's a failure to meet bail without reasonable cause, which the human right to seek asylum certainly is. The UK was so deeply concerned about this bail technicality that it waited a full 9 days before issuing an arrest warrant. After the Swedish government decided to drop its sexual assault investigation without issuing any charges, Assange's legal team attempted last year to get the warrant dropped. The judge in that case, Emma Arbuthnot, has mainly shady establishment ties and just happens to be married to former Tory junior defense minister and government whip James Arbuthnot, who served as director of security intelligence consultancy SC Strategy with a former head of MI6. Lady Arbuthnot denied Assange's request with extreme vitriol, despite his argument that British law does have provisions which allow for the time he'd already served under house arrest to count toward far more time than would be served for violating bail. The British government kept police stationed outside the embassy at taxpayers' expense with orders to arrest Assange on site. This, like America's tweaking the law in such a way that allows it to prosecute him for journalism, and Ecuador's tweaking its asylum laws in such a way that allowed it to justify revoking Assange's asylum, was another way a government tweaked the law in such a way that allowed it to facilitate Assange's capture and imprisonment. These three governments all tweaked the law in unison in such a way that when looked at individually, don't look totalitarian, but when taken together, just so happen to look exactly the same as imprisoning a journalist for publishing inconvenient truths. I really like that she brought up about how, when you look at something separately, you can say, oh, that's really messed up, or, oh, that looks okay. But when you look at the whole picture, which is so necessary, which the mainstream media is super intent on you never putting together, that's when you start to see these connections. It's like, wait a minute, you have to know this media game to really even get anywhere, it seems.
Well, and that's why manufactured confusion is so vital for the establishment media, for legacy media, whatever you want to call them. Because when you do take a step back, when you do look at it from, a long lens or even an anthropological perspective at this point, it's really hard to deny that it is exactly like multiple governments going after a journalist for publishing things that embarrass them. And that's the conclusion that Nils Melzer came to when he was originally skeptical of Julian Assange's case in the first place. But once he got information that hadn't been made necessarily publicly available, or if it had, it was swept under the rug so fast you wouldn't have noticed it was there, and he put it together, he then had a complete picture. Go figure. And that complete picture said, this man has been targeted and persecuted for going on a decade. This man has been psychologically tortured for a number of years. And it's solely because he reported on the crimes of world governments, the intelligence agencies that run them, and the corporations that fund them.
Right. And I think too, it's always, Nils Melzer is such an important, figure for me, and I think for everybody in this. And I think about that. I mean, here's a learned, intelligent, intellectual, obviously principled man who just from, I don't imagine him being like, a 5-hour-a-day TV watcher or something like that. But just from the way the media has presented this over a decade, wasn't even going to look at the case. And I think that really shows us just how ingrained the propaganda is just in society in general, and these narratives are. So I think that, one of my rules now is I'm like, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. I guess I better go learn about it,
And the thing too with the judge, Lady Arbuthnot, her husband and I believe her son are directly implicated in WikiLeaks releases. So this person whose family had the act of journalism committed against them is now responsible for removing the bail charge against the person that did that act of journalism. So that whole fucked up circle just shouldn't be allowed, one, to happen at all, but two, just shows the abuse by process.
Oh, Misty, do you want to take the next one, Swinger 10?
Yeah, I can totally do that. Is it up? Does anybody know? I don't have it. Okay. All right. So actually, this is my favorite one. I'm so excited I got this one, you guys. This is my favorite one. It's so ridiculous. Okay, Trump is going to rescue him. Yay! Trip down insanity lane. Make no mistake, this is a smear, and it's just as pernicious as any of the others. People who circulate this hogwash are hurting Assange just as much as the MSNBC mainliners who hate him overtly, even if they claim to support him. At a time when we should all be shaking the earth and demanding freedom for Assange, a certain strain of Trump supporter is going around telling everyone, relax. Trump has a plan. Wait and see. Trust the plan, y'all. I've been told to calm down and wait and see many times since Assange's arrest. What wait and see really means is do nothing, don't do anything. Trust that this same Trump administration, which issued an arrest warrant for Assange in December 2017, whose extradition request is now the sole reason for Assange's imprisonment, whose CIA director labeled WikiLeaks a hostile non-state intelligence service and pledged to destroy it. Trust them to do the right thing instead of the wrong thing. Do absolutely nothing in the meantime, and especially don't help put political pressure on Trump to end Assange's persecution. This strategy benefits someone, and that someone ain't Assange. Please stop doing this. If you support Assange, stop doing this. Even if you're still chugging the Kool-Aid. I love Caitlin.
Me too.
She has like the perfect snark. It's the best. Like it hits just right. I don't even know where I'm at now. The Kool-Aid, duh. And still believe the reality TV star who hired Mike Pompeo as his Secretary of State is actually a brilliant strategist making incomprehensibly complex 8D chess moves to thwart the deep state. Even if you believe all that, surely you'll concede that there's no harm in people pressuring Trump to do the right thing and end the persecution of Assange. If he really is a beneficent wizard, there'd surely be no harm in making a lot of noise telling him he'd better pardon Assange, right? Then why spend your energy running around telling everyone to relax and stop protesting? I love that one so much. She nails it on it's ridiculous to think that Donald Trump is some next level political strategy genius gonna save the world and take down the deep state and rescue Assange. And are you kidding me? It's so ridiculous. I don't even have words for it. Truly. I love her. She's like, it's funny. She makes me laugh. Like, even though I feel like that reading that kind of makes me depressed because there's people out there who believe it, the way she puts it makes me laugh, and I love her for it.
See, the part that I like the best out of this entire thing is where it says, surely you'll concede that there's no harm in people pressuring Trump to do the right thing and end the persecution of Assange. And I think regardless of conspiratorial ideology, that should be the one uniting factor, is the fact that Julian Assange is in prison, that Julian Assange did reveal these things, and building pressure with Donald Trump and his support base is really the only way I think that on that level for like a pardon or the DOJ to just completely drop the charges. That's what we would need, is to get the Trump base energized, which I've said that we should go to Trump rallies and pass them out free Julian Assange signs and let them take them into the rallies themselves, because those will be coming back soon. But I think that that's the biggest part of pulling this all together. It's the fact that you can pressure someone even if you support that person.
Hey, I wanted to, did you guys watch Jimmy Dore earlier? He was on right before we started. I don't know if you guys watched it or not, but he was talking to somebody in the chat said that he should have Donald Trump Jr. on. And I thought that was genius. And I'm sitting there, and as soon as Steph read it, I thought he could ask him about Assange. Like, he could talk to him about Assange. And I think that would be so cool. That's like it. I think he would go on Jimmy's show. I think maybe. I mean, a lot of Trump supporters love Jimmy. So, I mean, how cool would it be if we could get Jimmy Dore to pressure Donald Trump Jr. about Assange on his show? That'd be
if
sweet.
we can corner Michael Flynn Jr. and get him to sign a WikiLeaks flag, somebody can put that out to I don't know what Tweedledem. Like, I don't think he's the dumbest Trump son. I think that's Eric. Pretty sure that's Eric.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but he's definitely not the sharpest monkey in the barrel. you know, by any stretch of the imagination. That'd be an interesting interview. It would be.
The cool thing would be though is that you would get a lot of Trump supporters would listen to that.
Yeah, but you never know how that kind of shit's gonna go, man. Like,
for sure.
It could either go really, really good for like 45 minutes, or it could go really bad in 5, and then it would just be done. That doesn't mean that it shouldn't be explored, though. It would make every fucking paranoid the Bernie Sanders fan fiction author just shit bobblehead dolls for like months, dude, because they're the first people that are like, Jimmy Dore's betrayed the progressive movement because he said a bad thing about Bernard Jesus Sanders, and I'm mad. Like, and then there's like 30 videos of people doing that. That's their whole show. I wanted to kind of circle back to something that Burma said, but we can hold that till the end, and Andrew can read his slide about there's no drops on Trump.
Yeah, do you want me to jump into that slide right now?
Yeah, might as well, so we can get.
Yeah. So first of all, Assange is not a leaker; he is a publisher, meaning that he and WikiLeaks have done is publish leaks that were brought to them by other people. They are not out there prowling around, hacking into government databases and publishing the results. They are just an outlet which came up with a secure anonymous Dropbox and invited leakers to use it so that way the leaks can be published safely. If nobody brings them any leaks on a given subject, there is nothing to be published. There's nothing to publish on it. In the run-up to the 2016 election, there were leaks on Donald Trump, but the leaks went to other outlets. Trump's stack information was leaked by the New York Times, and the infamous "grabber by the pussy" audio was leaked by the Washington Post. There was no need for them to leak to WikiLeaks when they could safely leak to mainstream outlets, and WikiLeaks couldn't force them to. Secondly, WikiLeaks has publicly solicited leaks on Trump, both before and after the election. WikiLeaks' controversial exchange with Donald Trump Jr. Were largely just a leak publisher soliciting a potential source for leaks in language that the source would listen to, and the leaks that they were asking for were from Trump. It's apparent that they've always wanted to publish leaks on Trump, and would if given the material. Thirdly, in 2017, Vault 7 CIA leaks were a Trump administration publication. It enraged the Trump administration so much that the next month, Mike Pompeo gave a speech declaring WikiLeaks a hostile, non-state intelligence service and vowing to take the outlet down. And a few months later, Trump's DOJ issued a warrant for Assange's arrest on a made-up, bogus charge. Assange smears don't like to count on CIA leaks because they don't contain any videos of Trump with well-hydrated Russian prostitutes, but they were indisputably a blow to the administration, and it's stupid to pretend otherwise. Sorry if I read terribly. I'm horribly dyslexic. But I think that's the big thing, and we talked about this earlier, how the Vault 7 leaks were essentially a swipe at the Trump administration's intelligence department saying, hey, all of this information came out. That's huge. That's one of the biggest scandals that can happen. And then you also have the OPCW, but no one regards those as attacks against Trump. They either ignore the fact that they happened or say that they were dangerous to the interests of the United States.
Well, and that's the thing that's always tricky to me is I'm like, okay, so the interests of whose United States? You know, not we the people's United States, like somebody else's United States, because nobody that I know is really interested in committing war crimes. And I think that's a huge thing to just continue to keep people distracted from what was released, because even we can see with what's going on right now with not being able to get, accurate information about even what type of tests are being done for this virus, not even to address what it is, or, that we can't have any sort of discourse around that. What WikiLeaks provided and all the documents that they provided was the smoking gun. There's no argument. I mean, this is stuff like people speculated, so many people knew, like, well, that's just knowing narrative management. You knew that the Iraq war, that the, weapons of mass destruction was BS. I mean, I knew that, and I was only partially awake, back at during that time. And I think, I just think that's so important to remember, why it was such a vital thing that they did, and that they still do. Talking to Nozomi about, just even her perspective based off of this, and what so many different people's thoughts can bring to a better world when they're based on the truth, and not based on, oh, well, he's a bad guy because the media says so, when really the people who are saying that he is, these are the ones guilty of the exact same things that they're accusing him from. I mean, the whole Iraq war of him, causing harm or not redacting things. Well, how about a legal war? How much harm does that cause? How many lives were lost because of that in the first place? So I don't know. Sorry, that was a little bit of a tangent there.
What about you, Misty?
I have always had a hard time with people who don't know that WikiLeaks publishes stuff about every government from a lot of countries. Like, it's all you have to do is go to their website and type in Trump or Putin or whatever you want to type in. You can find out whether or not they've, published something about these people. And so this whole smear about how he's never, published anything about Trump, it's one of those things where it's willful ignorance. And and it's something I've been like kind of grappling with the past week, is like, how do you combat that? Because like we were talking about earlier, people are tired, they're overworked, they're trying to raise families, and it's really hard to kind of get through the propaganda machine. I mean, you guys know how crazy it is. Like, five companies own like 90% of the media, and they have it locked down, and it's hard to get through to people and kind of disabuse them of their illusions. And that's, I don't know. I don't know why I just went off on that. Sorry, see, we just both went off on tangents. But yeah, like they've published about so many incredibly important events, and governments and corruption, and it's not just I haven't seen them show any real favoritism. And so it's just, all you have to do is go to their website and take a peek for yourself. There's a really handy search bar.
10 million documents.
Never had to make a redaction. I mean, this is like, nobody, name another news source that has 100% record of accuracy. There isn't one. That's crazy.
There's not even another news source that came close to publishing 10 million documents. Like, let alone not having to retract any, but to even publish that number of them is crazy.
And it's really, honestly, it's closer to 95 or 97% of media that's owned by those 5 companies, because every there's like blogs, but that's rarely are those breaking news. They're commenting on it, giving their thoughts on it, but I don't necessarily include that in the same category as independent media or media. But my point to that is, like, even just shit outlets like Vox, like Comcast is the majority owner of that company, and yet people will claim that they're independent because you find them on the internet, not through a cable channel. And that's people's concept of what is and isn't independent media. And I think that it's something that we need to discuss more. And I can't stress enough. Jason was talking about confirmation bias. That is most of independent media, is confirmation bias. It's not necessarily teaching you anything. It's not helping you on your evolution to become a more complete self. It's not giving you any insight into your own sense of self, because nothing that about you that makes you you is being challenged in independent media. And that's what it's supposed to do. If journalism is supposed to be adversarial, you should feel some conflict from time to time when you watch your favorite content creator. There should be things where you're like, I don't know about that guy, and then go and look it up. Like, that's what it's supposed to be. And the fact that it's not, the fact that it's borderline clickbait to absolute clickbait, confirmation bias 99% of the time, should be pissing some people off.
I don't even know if it's just confirmation bias either. I think one of the biggest problems in independent media, at least that I've seen, is that yes, they're independent and they're viewer supported or whatever, but I think that there's this like switch that happens at some point where they realize that they're dependent on the widest group of people watching their channel, and so they shrink their views down to be as least offensive as possible so that they don't lose clicks. And so, I mean, and I get it, it's human nature, especially if you need to do this, like if you're making a living off of this. I get that, but at some point we're either going to have to be serious about legitimately independent journalism, and that's why I try to tell people all the time, support Steve's channel, support this channel, support the Jason Burmises, and like go that if you don't donate to politicians, I mean, for fuck's sake, don't donate to spend that money on independent journalism if you can. I mean, throw $10 here or there, like donate the Action for Assange crew is trying to raise money right now to go back to DC for the extradition hearing, so donate to that. Like, that's something that you can do to really because to me, I think having a free and adversarial press is like one of the biggest issues if we really want to move forward. Like, we can't move forward. You can't fight climate change without access to the truth. You can't fight money in politics without access to the truth. You can't fight for healthcare without access to the truth. And so if we don't protect journalism now, all these things that we think we're fighting for are going to be a hell of a lot harder to get, because we're not going to have a free and independent media.
I think that's so true. And one thing too is just to your point, and this is from Nozomi's article, and she says the framers of the U.S. Constitution believe there is a seed of corruption inherent in humans. This is why Thomas Jefferson, the principal author of America's founding document, emphasized the vital role of a free press in keeping government power in check. He said that if he had to choose between a government without newspapers or newspapers without a government, I should not hesitate a moment to prefer the latter. So there you go.
But I would like to thank everybody for watching this evening, and I would like to thank our guests, Jason and Nozomi, for joining us. You can find us on Twitter at action_4Assange. You can find me personally at Andrew Zigman on Twitter. And again, we have a call to action up on our website to get everybody more engaged in ways that they can help free Julian.
And I'm Misty, and you can find me on Twitter at Sarcasm Stardust. And I also just want to thank, I hope Nozomi will come back on when she has a better internet connection, because I would really like to talk to her some more and get some, just have like a longer conversation with her. And also, obviously, thank you to Jason Burmis. He's awesome. Everybody support his channel as well. And yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
And I'm Kendra Christian. You can follow me on Twitter at edebs13, and you can follow Denver Free Assange at DNV Free JA. Definitely big thank you to Nozomi and Jason and all of my co-hosts, and hi to everybody in the chat. And hopefully you guys will join us also on Discord and help plan for DC, because lots of hands make little work. And so even though it's still going to be a lot of work with hopefully a lot of hands. So thanks a lot.
if you're just seeing me for the first time, my name is Steve Poikinen. I host a show called Slow News Day. You can find it here on YouTube by typing in Slow News Day Podcast into the search bar. I'm on a few other platforms, including DLive and the Rockfin. If you you can watch all of the free content on Rockfin by signing up for a free account, or you can endorse me for $10 a month, and you can get access to all of the premium content on that website. Jason Burmis is over there, Last American Vagabond, Ron Cohen. There's a bunch of really good creators over there. So if you can do that, or failing that, donate to the GoFundMe. And if you can't do that, share the link. I have some incredible guests coming up on Slow News Day for the rest of the week. Tomorrow morning is Wednesday, 10 o'clock Pacific. Danny Sherson will be on the show. He is another one of those. It's the week of breaking brains on Slow News Day. Monday I had Whitney Webb. This morning I had Vanessa Beeley. Danny Sherson's on tomorrow. Ryan from Last American Vagabond's on tomorrow. Thursday, Robbie Yeager and I are going to do a deep dive into Sunrise Movement, followed by Alex from Red Star Radio. Sunday, I will be joined by the one and only Commander X, and that will be a fucking party. So check all that out. Huge thanks to Nozomi, to Jason, to my co-host, to Sleepy Josh on the ones and twos. We love you guys. We will see you Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. And till next time, good luck to us all.